Hello everyone, I'm Jay Joshi and welcome to the 40th episode of Learning Java. Today we'll be learning about interfaces. So, as you know, inheritance, there are three main types of inheritances: single inheritance, multi level inheritance, and hierarchical inheritance. And there are other two types of inheritances as well: multiple inheritance and hybrid inheritance. Now, hybrid inheritance and multiple inheritance are not supported in Java, and to implement them, we use interfaces. So, first of all, what is an interface? To understand interface, you need to know the concept of an abstract class. An abstract class is essentially a class in which cannot be instantiated. So, this is what an abstract class is, and an interface class is very similar to that. So, for example, we have a parent class A and we have a child class B. All right, and child class B is inheriting attributes and properties from parent class A. Then we have another class C from which this B class inherits. So the child class is B and the parent class is C. Now, instead of doing these two single inheritances separately, we can do something like this: A and C together, two parents for one child class B. This is multiple inheritance, and to do this, we use interface. Because if we use normal inheritance, we use the extends keyword. So it'll be something like class B extends A and class B extends C. We can't have class B extends A and C. That's not possible. But in interface, we can do that. We can inherit technically interface from two or more classes. So this is the advantage of interface. Now, an interface class can only have constants. So constants are final variables, and abstract methods. Abstract methods are methods which have no body. So interface class can only have final variables, constants, and abstract methods. And in each class that implements this interface must define all the methods in the interface. And if these methods are not defined, then the compilation will fail. So this is what a interface is essentially. Now, multiple inheritance, like you already know, an interface is technically a class which contains methods and variables, and they are abstract methods and final variables. And so it is our responsibility. Like you know, in an abstract class, there are abstract methods. And as a programmer, it's our responsibility to write codes for those abstract methods in the child class. In the same way, as a programmer, it's our responsibility because only abstract methods are there in interface. So it's our responsibility to write the full body of those in the child class. And if we don't, then the child class cannot be instantiated, just like an abstract class. So abstract class and interface class are very similar. Now, a class can implement any number of interfaces but can extend only one class at a time. This is the advantage of interface. This way we can have multiple parents, and this is how we use multiple inheritance in Java. Now, how do you implement an interface? Well, to implement an interface, we just use the keyword implements. So you see this keyword implements. Now, interfaces are like superclass, so they're the parent class, in which the child class inherits the parent class. And in the child class, you have to redefine all the abstract methods. So this is how you do it. You have a class, and whatever the name of the class, let's say B, implements, and then you have two or more. Can have C, D. You can have as many parents as you want. So this B will be the child class. It implements like extends. So it's pretty similar. And then all the names. If this was extends, then you can have only one class name. But in this case, you can have multiple class names separated by a comma. And inside this, you can have the body of the class, whatever this is. So this is how you write the statement to implement an interface class. Now, this is for the child class of an interface. This is how you implement it. How do you define an interface? Well, to define an abstract class, we use the abstract keyword. And in the same way, to define an interface class, you use the interface keyword. So when declaring the class name, you use the thing interface geoshape. So geoshape is the name of the class. Now we know that an interface can only have constants. So constants are essentially, let's say we have final, pi, is equal int pi is equal to double pi because it'll be a decimal value is equal to 3.14. Now this is a constant. This pi value is a constant. It can't be changed, and thus we use the final keyword. In the same way, an interface can only have these constant variables, and it can only have abstract methods. Now, since we know they can have only constants and abstract methods, when we are writing the name of the variables and the name of the methods, we don't need to explicitly mention final and abstract, because the program Java already knows that all the variables will be final and all the methods will be abstract. So you can see there's a class variable double pi is equal to 22 by 7.0, and we don't need to mention the keyword final because we already know it's a final method because it's in an interface class. And then we have a function void drop with a semicolon. You don't need to again mention if it's abstract. And these two are two other functions. Another point to note here is that it is completely not possible to have a normal method or a normal variable in this. Anything you put has to be abstract method or a constant variable. So you don't have to explicitly use a keyword. Now all these classes over here, ACD, comma, E, anything which you have, all of these need to be interface classes. Now, how do you combine interface and inheritance? How do you use a mixture of these two? So to do this, you can use both the keywords together in the same line. So class something, let's say class C, extends superclass B. So B it will be the main class, and then we have C. This is the child class. Now this class B, this superclass B, implements interface. Now this interface, now this is the child class C and this is the superclass B. So we can write this something as, let's say the child, it's A. The interface class is A. So this is how the thing will look like. This class C, this child class, now has two parents. And if you want one more, for example, we can have one more. This will be D, for example. So the name of the child class is C. This is the child class. The name of the parent class is B. And the name of the interfaces which it implements is D and A. So you can see how this child class C has three parents. So this is nothing but multiple inheritance. So what's happening over here is that this is a normal superclass or parent class. And these two are interface classes, which have only constant variables and abstract methods. Now in this child class C, we have to initialize all the abstract methods in D and all the abstract methods in A. And we can use this parent class B as a normal inheritance class. So you can see how we have three parents, two or more parents for one child. And again, over here you can have like 10 or more interfaces, how many ever you want. So this is the advantage of having an interface and an inheritance together. So as I mentioned, a class can extend only one class but can implement one or more interfaces. And one major property of interfaces which make them very useful is that these interfaces allow for class mixing. So this is an important point to note, is that because of interfaces we have class mixing. Now for better understanding, let's have a look at some differences between an abstract class and an interface class. So you already know the similarities between an abstract class and an interface class. First of all, both of these classes cannot be instantiated, which means we cannot create an object of both of these classes. Now, an abstract class, an interface like we have studied, can only contain constants and abstract methods. But an abstract class can or cannot contain constants and may or may not contain abstract methods. Now, in an interface, all the methods and all the variables are all public by default. Now, why is this? This is because the main goal of an interface is so that something inherits us. And we cannot use the methods and the variables normally in an interface class. So the main goal of an interface class is to inherit it. And if these variables are, let's say, protected or private, then we won't be able to inherit them. If they're private, then there's just no point. And if they're protected, then we cannot inherit them in another package. So that's why these are implicitly public, so that we can utilize them and use them in all different kinds of child classes. In abstract class, however, we can specify if they are public, private, or protected. One major important point to note here is that abstract class can have constructors, but interface classes cannot have constructors. So that's pretty much it. That's the difference. The constructor part is the most important, and that in interface they're all public. Now let's have a look at the difference between a normal class and an interface. And also this class, right? You shouldn't get confused with like what is this class? So there are actually two types of classes, concrete class and an abstract class. So an abstract class you already know, and a concrete class is a class which is not abstract. So just the normal classes we use. And if you put the abstract keyword, then it becomes an abstract class. So a normal class is a class which can be instantiated, however an interface cannot be instantiated. A normal class can have constructors like an abstract class, and an interface cannot have constructors. A class cannot have abstract methods. A concrete class cannot have abstract methods, because if it has an abstract method, then the class needs to be an abstract class. In an interface, all the methods are implicitly abstract and all the variables are constants. However, in a normal class, they can or may not be constants. And again, like an abstract class, a normal class, we can specify the access specify public, private, or protected. But again, in an interface, they are all implicitly public. So these are the essential differences between a concrete class, abstract class, and an interface. And you can see how interface and inheritance, when we use them together, they're actually so useful and for things like code usability, code generalization, and other useful uses for the programmer. So you can try and use them in your program, try use multiple inheritance with them, use multiple classes, and try to play around with them, use different classes which perform different functions, and then combine them all together for a child class. So that's how you can use them in your thing. So that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching, and if you have any queries or suggestions, you can mail me. My email will be in the description down below, and thanks again for watching.